Hey, what's up guys? Welcome back to another video. Today we are going to be ranking every single operator in Rainbow Six Siege. I'm not ranking these in any particular order, just in the order that they are coming in. So without further ado, let's take a look. Starting off with number 1, we have Jackal. No doubt he's going in the S tier. He is one of the best kits in the game. His assault rifle has an ACOG, he has a pocket shotgun to make rotates, and he has claymores to cover his flank. His gadget's one of the most broken things to have ever come to Siege, and it gives his whole team a pinpoint location as to where you are at all times. Only thing stopping him from being an S+ is the fact that he's banned 99.99% of the time. Next we have Blackbeard. D because he's a dick of an operator to play against. If you play Blackbeard, please uninstall. He goes against everything that Siege is known for. The one-shot headshot mechanic goes right out the window. He has 2 bulletproof shields that get broken after he takes 800 health of damage. 800 health! Those are kills, that's a kill that's supposed to be the operators, the defenders, every single time a bullet hits a shield. It's terrible. Blackbeard needs to be reworked or completely removed. Castle is an interesting one because Castle really depends on the player. A good Castle can waste the opponent's time, he can waste their resources, or hopefully both. However, a bad Castle, a Castle we would put in D tier, just locks you out of the objective and closes off your flanks. Castle really doesn't require as much knowledge of the game, technical skill-wise, but he requires a lot of map knowledge as to where to put his castle barricades to make the most out of them. Even though he doesn't have that high of a skill ceiling, I feel like most players really don't know how to play Castle correctly, therefore I'm placing Castle in C. Clash, once you begin to break her down, really isn't all that intimidating. Her biggest threat is that she wastes your time. Her main purpose in the game is to waste your time, to slow you down, and to stop you from planning. But without a coordinated team, she really isn't all that big of a threat because one melee can knock her shield down. Just like every other shield operator in the game, she suffers the 30% mobility nerf, so she moves rather slowly. Also, being a 1 speed, that doesn't help her a lot at all. She's gonna have to sit in the C tier with Castle. Iana is going into A tier for sure. She has a collection of great assault rifles, and when it comes to surveillance and intel gathering, she's one of the best in the game because she really doesn't have to worry about a mute jammer or something ruining her from gathering intel for her team. The only thing stopping her from going into S tier is because she isn't quite as essential as some of the other operators we're going to put up here. Zofia is going into S tier. She's one of the best, if not the best, entry fragger in the entire game. Her gadget is incredible, with instant impact grenades and concussion mines that she can shoot over a distance. She has an amazing assault rifle and LMG with access to ACOGs on both. And there's no reason to pick her over Ashe. I feel like Ashe really has fallen from grace after she lost her ACOG and after Zofia got released. If this video were a meme, right, I would put Tachanka in S+. But Tachanka really doesn't have a place in the game as of now. He doesn't serve a point because he's the worst operator in the game. He's gonna have to join Blackbeard in D tier. Hopefully his rework gets to move him up to C or B, but for now he's gonna have to sit in D tier. Warden! Okay, Warden's an instant D tier pick. Warden's one of the most useless operators in the game. His gadget really only is effective if the enemy team is playing a Ying or a Blitz. So there's not a lot of uses where Warden's useful. And I feel like that's the biggest problem with Warden. His kit is alright. His guns are decent. You can work with them. And he has nitro cells. So that's nice. And he's 2 armor. But the biggest problem is his gadget is never in a situation where you're going to need it, ever. It's never in a situation where you're ever going to need his gadget. So there's no reason to pick Warden. And on top of all of that, he's probably one of the most selfish defenders in the game, because his gadget only helps him. Ace, without a doubt, he's moving into S tier. He's arguably one of the best hard breachers, if not the best hard breacher in the game. He can throw his cams of breach and breach through walls and hatches, up, down, left, right, all around, just like Hibana. Except unlike Hibana, he has a way better gun, he's 2 armor, 2 speed, and he has access to NATO sights instead of Russian optics. AK-12 is one of the highest damage dealing weapons in the game. So with all of these combined, along with the fact that he has smokes to cover his own plant, means he lands himself a spot in the beloved S tier. Ash is landing herself a spot in the A tier. It really hurts me, right? Because Ash used to be up here all the time. All the time, no matter what happened, Ash is up here. But with the introduction of Zofia, Ash really has fallen from grace. Her breaching rounds aren't as good as Zofia's concussion rounds. And she lost her ACOG on her RC4. Even though the gun is still good, she's still a 1 armor 3 speed with almost no hitbox. It's just not as useful as Zofia. Zofia is basically the Ash if you want to win, so keep that in mind. A tier. Glaz. Glaz has seen a lot of changes over the years. He used to be up here, then he went down here again, and he's in a weird limbo phase where he doesn't quite fit in anywhere with a strategy that's useful. See, because Seige is so close quarters, and because he's a sniper, he doesn't quite fulfill a role that the team needs at all. And for a Glaz to be useful, he needs to really know what he's doing and where to place his shots. But if a Glaz is going to know all that, why doesn't someone just pick Callie, who can also take care of utility? And see, to move up, an operator needs to be able to take care of utility as well. So Glaz is landing himself a spot in D until he gets better, or until the meta shifts to where it's not so utility heavy. There's nothing that really can be done. There's no way to buff or nerf him anymore. Fuse is going into A tier. He has the best gun in the game, the AK-12. It's debatable whether Russian optics or the NATO optics are better. I prefer the Russian optics, honestly, because they help me place my shots a little bit better, but I don't know. It's more on personal preference. His gadget is one of the best in the game for dealing with defender gadgets, and if Thatcher is banned, which he's almost always banned because of how powerful he is, Fuse isn't a bad option to bring in. He's not quite S tier because he's not so essential as Thatcher, because Thatcher lands himself a spot in S tier because no matter what happens, Thatcher's always going to be useful. However, and this is a big however, this list is going to change, and I'm going to make an updated list whenever Shadow Legacy drops. Thatcher's getting a huge nerf to his EMP grenades, to where they're only going to disable gadgets, not destroy them, which requires that he's played a little bit differently. And so with that change, his ranking may change as well. Your Boyo Goyo is going to have to land him spot in the C area with Castle and Clash. Goyo mains do not exist. After his nerf, everyone either went to smoke or they stuck around just for his vector, honestly. Goyo doesn't... There are other operators in the game that do Goyo's job better than Goyo, is what I'm trying to say. Preferably Smoke. Smoke is a must-have operator for the reasons Goyo was a must-have operator. He could lock down the site with deployable shields, and he can damage enemies over time. But with Smoke doing a better job than that, having better guns, Nitro, there's no reason to pick Goyo over Smoke unless you just really like the Vector. But if you really like the Vector, you can just pick Mira. Mira also lands herself a spot in S tier because her Vector is incredible. She's 3 armor, one of the best intel gatherers in the game, and one of the best defensive anchors in the game for sitting at the objective. And if all of that isn't enough, she also has nitro cells to deal with pesky shield operators like Blitz and Monty, so she's an all-around perfect operator. IQ used to be all the way down in the bottom, now she's all the way up here in S tier. IQ is so important in this meta just because of how many utilities there are in the game. Because you have mute jammers, capcan traps, all of these different yokais, all of these different gadgets, and there's only one way to take them out, and it's usually to shoot them, get rid of them, but you can't shoot what you can't see, and IQ solves that problem. IQ also has one of the best guns in the game, the G8 LMG, so all in all, one of the best operators as of now. If you haven't given IQ a shot, you really should. Ying. Ying's in B tier. Ying is in the middle of the pack, honestly, because with a recent buff, she moved from C to B. But really, Ying is only useful as long as Wamai or Jaeger do not exist on the enemy team, because she has the ability to completely blind sight, plant, and get kills in sight, because no one can see her. But, and this is a big but, she's countered by Jaeger, who's an S tier, because Jaeger's of course an S tier all the time. And she's countered by Wamai. Now, Jaeger, no matter what they do to Jaeger, they can make Jaeger a 3 armor and remove his deployable shield from his inventory, and he will always be an S tier for his existence. Him simply existing and placing his gadget helps the team. Because no matter what, there's always going to be operators with throwables or grenades or whatever, and they're going to throw them into sight, and his ADS is going to be able to catch those and spare you the trouble of running away and making yourself more vulnerable. Wamai is a lot like Jaeger, except Wamai is just a lot harder to play, which is why I'm placing Wamai in B, because he requires a lot more thought than Jaeger, and with his magnet placements, you need to put them in a way where they won't harm you, but they can harm your opponent. See, that's the thing. Jaeger's ADS just completely wipes everything, but Wamai's magnets lead them to a place to detonate. So with some big brain plays, you can actually come up with some rather cool stuff with his deployable shield. His guns are alright, I'm not saying anything about that. But for ease of use, I'm gonna have to put Jaeger higher. Wamai lands himself a spot in B, right next to Ying. Buck is going into A tier. He's one of the best for vertical play on soft walls, soft floors in the entire game. And he can destroy things from a distance where Sledge has to get up close. However, the reason I'm putting Sledge in S tier, and I'm not moving Buck into S tier, is for 2 reasons. Sledge can take out castle barricades, Maestro Evil Eyes, etc. And he has frag grenades as well, which makes him a better operator overall compared to Buck. Buck also requires a lot of map knowledge, I found. If you know the map you're playing on, and you know where to breach in from using his shotgun, you are going to be such a valuable asset to your team. And that's why good Buck players are always so incredible. Bandit, and I'm gonna pair Kaid with Bandit as well, because this video is already going to be super long. Bandit and Kaid are 2 of the most important operators in the game, because they can counter the 3 hard breachers that you need to worry about. You need to worry about Thermite, you need to worry about Havana, and you need to worry about Ace. Bandit tricking is still one of the most potent and dangerous things you can do in the game. Being able to essentially destroy a Thermite exocharge is so important, honestly. And Kaid, even though it's not as easy to Cade trick as it is to Bandit trick, you can still do it. And Cade is a great anchor, being 3 armor. And until his shotgun gets nerfed in Shadow Legacy, use it with the ACOG. It is a DMR. It is not a shotgun. Do not believe what people tell you. Do not believe what the game tells you. It is not a shotgun. It's a DMR. Use it. I'm gonna put Valkyrie in S tier. Even though her guns aren't really much to write home about, the MPX is a headshot machine if you know how to use it. Even though there's not a lot to write home about, the fact that her gadget is that good lands her a spot here, because having more cameras, gathering more intel, the ability to gather more intel, is so important in Siege, because the greatest weapon you have is not a gun, it's not a gadget, it's intel, it's information, it's knowing where the enemy is coming from, where they're breaching in from, what their pattern is. And having Valkyrie gives you more information, making her an automatically S tier operator in my opinion. Even though I made Monty, I love Monty, but I have to acknowledge that he's not one of the strongest operators, because a good Monties play in S tier. They can distract, annoy the enemy team, pick people off when the opportunity arises, and can lead their team to victory. But a bad Monty, a selfish Monty, will get himself killed trying to get kills with his revolver. So, it's this level of skill that's required with Monty, this high risk, high reward playstyle is why I'm placing him in B. If you know how to play him, he's insane. But if you don't, he's not very good. Habana lands herself in A tier. She is by far the weakest hard breacher in the game. I'm not really constituting Maverick as a hard breacher, even though he can hard breach walls. He's not quite a hard breacher in my books. She's great for dealing with hatches, but other than that, her hard breaching on walls is really leaves something to be desired, and it's really disappointing to me. When you pick a Habana, you really could pick Thatcher. Not Thatcher, Thermite. Thermite is an S tier operator. He's always been an S tier operator, and I feel he always will be an S tier operator just for the fact that he can breach walls so quickly, so effectively, and make such a massive impact to the game. And that's why Bandit and Kaid are up here so high in the S tier, is because they need to counter Thatcher. Not Thatcher, Thermite. I know Thatcher's up here too with his main man Thermite, but we gotta get the names right. Pulse, super underappreciated operator. He has the UMP-45, which it's not the best, but it surely gets work done. It has almost no recoil, high bullet damage, just a low magazine really is the big problem. Is a nitro cell. He's a 1 armor, so he is a roamer for sure. And he has wall hacks. Yep, he has wall hacks. All of this combined makes him an excellent defender if you know how to play him. And he's great for gathering intel for your team as to where they're coming from. And is great for coordinating attacks with nitro cells through floors, as I believe you guys are already aware. Maverick used to be an S tier operator. But then they made his blowtorch actually make noise, and now he's a B tier operator. Just solely because of that reason. The reason Maverick was so good was because he was able to get through walls so quickly and so quietly without needing the assistance of a Thatcher. Now, the only reason you would ever bring a Maverick is if Thatcher gets banned early in the match, to take care of the wall so you can throw a frag grenade or something in and take out the bandit wires and the bandit charges. Other than that, he has some decent guns, I guess. His DMR is a 50 caliber DMR, but it's still lacking. We're still catching him lacking even though he has a 50 caliber assault rifle. Who thinks that a 50 caliber assault rifle on the battlefield is necessary? Who? Who made this decision? Anyways, Kapkan is up next. Kapkan's going in B. He is a good trap operator, but also a bad trap operator. He is the noobiest operator and the destroyer of noobs. Let me explain. His gun is great. It has almost no recoil. It deals some decent punch, but it's not much to propel him to B tier. His gadget, though. In low ranks, in low levels, in low ranked, he's really effective. Along with Caviar, I feel both of these land at the same spot, except Caviar is slightly worse, and I'll get to her in a moment. As more people play the game, as they get better at the game, they'll begin to realize, let's check the doorways, and they'll see the Kapkan traps. They'll see the tripwires, and they'll shoot them out. Because he's not a proactive operator, because he just sets his gadget down and forgets about it, there's nothing much he can really do after that. He just has to set them and hope that people run into them. And for that reason, that unpredictability is why I'm putting him in B. Mute, simply by existence, lands himself a spot in S tier. There's never a bad time to play Mute, because he can stop breaches on walls, he can counter intel, he's the best counter intel operator on defense in the entire game, and in combination with another operator I'm going to talk about later, has a chance to completely take all of the drones from the enemy team and use their own surveillance against them. He also has nitros, an SMG-11, and an amazing primary shotgun or SMG of your choice. The big boys run the SMG and shotgun combo though. S tier operator, one of the best. Your team does not appreciate you enough if you run Mute. Melusi is going in A. She's very annoying, and I feel her gadget is more of a nuisance than anything else. It's basically just a proximity sensor, a proximity alarm that says, "Hey, I'm over here, shoot me!" But other than that, she doesn't have a lot riding for her. Her SMG is good. It's basically just Legion's SMG. And other than that, there's not a lot to talk about Melusi. Just place gadget down, make loud noise, shoot person near loud noise. One of the easiest operators in the game to use. Please, pick her up if you're new. Finka. Most of the time Finka is down here, but I'm actually putting Finka in C for the reason that she's not quite as useful as she is most of the time out of place. See, Finka, I don't see a positive or negative point about her. It's really strange because her guns aren't bad, but they're not particularly good either. They're alright. Nothing to write home about. Her ability can sometimes come in clutch with reviving you from a distance, but most of the time, the enemy who downed you is going to kill you before the Finka can even activate her surge to get you up. And when you're in a combat scenario, you control recoil in a certain way in this game, where you want the recoil to bounce enough to reach the head to get a headshot. Reducing that recoil all of a sudden can really throw people off in a fight, honestly. And without proper coordination, Finka's more of a detriment to your team than an aid. But since she isn't completely useless either, because she also gives that reduction to recoil and a boost to health, she's not quite useless like these operators, so I'm just gonna have to put her in C. There's no other place I can put her. Blitz by design is a terrible operator. I don't agree with the idea of Blitz, okay? The fact that he can flash you and blind you when your back is turned to him is complete bogus. It should not be like that. And anyways, even with this broken mechanic, he's still taken down by a melee to the shield which stuns him. And he has the same problems all shield operators have, which is that he moves hella slow. So until he either gets a rework or something happens to the meta that all of a sudden makes shield operators all S tier, he's not moving from D. Callie, I feel, requires a lot of mechanical skill to use, and if you're going to take the time to learn that mechanical skill, it's not quite worth the outcome. However, she might move up from B tier. I'm putting her in B tier. After Thatcher's nerf, because she can destroy utility as well. That's one thing that she does with her operator gadget. So maybe she'll move up in the future. We're just going to have to wait and see how the meta shifts after Thatcher's nerf. Nook. Nook is an A tier operator. One of the best operators for offense, counter intel. If played correctly, she requires a really big brain character to play. If played correctly, she can get a flank and have a profound impact on the game. But if not played correctly, she's going to end up getting herself killed because of her lackluster guns. The FMG9 really leaves something to be desired for me, and I find most of the time if you're not landing a headshot, you are going to die, and your opponent's going to be left with a sliver of health, and you're just going to be like, how did I not get the kill? If you're big brain enough, play Nook. Frost, C tier operator. I think we all know this one. She's not particularly good in middle or high tier competitive play. In lower levels, she's very strong with her bear traps. However, they're very easy to see. So you should be able to take them out with no problem. And with a gadget that's essentially neutered, that you can't use because everyone's going to destroy it, what are you left with? Lackluster guns. Yup, I said it. Both of her guns are trash. And with 2 trash guns and a gadget that doesn't really help, she's landing herself a spot in C. Not D, because she's not completely useless, I guess. She can have some utility, but not a lot. C is the highest she's going. Doc is severely overplayed. And not even so much overplayed, just overpraised. Because he's the king of spawn peeking, we all know that. But when you break him down, he doesn't provide as much utility to the team as he should provide to the team with his stim. There's not really any scenario in the game that I've come across where a Doc can stim up like 2 teammates and clutch the game with those stims. He more or less keeps them for himself to res him, making him more selfish than he actually appears. Which brings me to Rook. Rook, by existing, again, he's one of these operators that simply by being in the match, being a picked operator, he helps his team. Simply by existing, he boosts everyone's armor rating by 20%. Pulse? Oh, you want to be a 3 speed? Don't worry, you're also 2 armor now instead of 1 armor. Yeah. Tell me that isn't broken. Please, tell me that isn't broken. Well, not broken per se, but a really good operator. And he also has the same Goochmeister guns that Doc has over here. So, good pick. Good pick. If you play Rook, I do respect you. I really don't want to put Caveira in C, but I'm going to have to. In really low comp play, in low rank, low level play, she excels because no one really drones to find out where she is. But once people start droning more, she gets countered by drones, and that's the biggest problem. Because Vigil gets a spot in S tier because he counters drones. He counters droning and he counters intelligence gathering, getting the easy jump on people with his correct positioning. Caveira really doesn't have that, and in higher and higher ranks, it's harder and harder to get interrogations because more and more people drone and move in packs together, move in teams together, because they don't want to be left one by one to get picked off. Echo, S tier, easy. He can deny the plant. His MP SSD is incredible. Suppressed and deals more damage. He has access to an ACOG, and he can make rotates with impact grenades. Literally, what more could you want from a 3 armor operator? Gridlock is a C tier operator, really. She moves so... it's not even so much that she's bad, it's that Nomad does such a better job at what Gridlock should do. Gridlock is meant to cover the flank, guard the flank, and for post-plant. But Nomad does that so much better with better weapons. She moves faster and is much less clunky to use. She's a 3 armor, 1 speed, and her weapons aren't even that good to warrant using her over Nomad. Nomad has 2 incredible primary assault rifles, a gadget that essentially knocks people on their ass and completely makes them immobile for like 5 seconds, and is one of the best post-plant and flank guard gadgets in the entire game, right next to Claymores themselves. Definitely an A tier, maybe an S tier operator, if you really know how to get creative with her. Capitao, he's going in B tier. His guns are really incredible, honestly. He has a certain ceiling that you need to cross between when you're just shooting your fire arrows into objective to try and get a kill, or when you're actually pushing defenders to certain places and coordinating with your team to try and pick them off. It's because of that skill ceiling, again, that I'm putting him in B, much like Monty here. The way I see a lot of people play Alibi, I feel as time progressed from when Alibi first got released, people are catching on more and more to how Alibi is played. And Alibi really isn't all that practical anymore, because it's so easy to distinguish now what is a Alibi and what is a real player. And again, she's countered by drones too. If you just scan and there's no enemy, guess what? That's a Prisma. If she starts to flicker, guess what? She's a Prisma. And it's this same monotonous playstyle that really makes Alibi a weak operator. Amaru lands herself a spot in C, actually B. Yeah, I'm placing her in B because she does have a really good machine gun. However, her gadget is quite lackluster. About 5% of the time, I would say, you're going to break through a window and you're going to get the lucky jump on like 2-3 people. 5%. Seems pretty good, right? But then the other 95% of the time, you're going to get lasered out of the sky because you are left far too vulnerable when you are reeling into the window. And that's the biggest problem with Amaru, is that she is left too vulnerable for her to actually be a practical operator. B tier though, just because of that G8 LMG that she has. And I believe she has claymores too, so if that's the case, quick plant, you know, get that sneaky plant in, and get the flank, guard a doorway, and you can essentially win in less than 30 seconds with Amaru. If played correctly, under the right circumstances, and when all the stars align in a correct way, and when all the planets are shifted in the right way, yeah, it's not worth it. Don't pick Amaru. Mozzie Max Goose. I really love this operator, I really do, but I'm gonna have to put him in B tier. After he lost his Super Shorty, I feel like he lost a lot of that utility that he used to have before. And he hasn't quite been the same since. When paired with a mute, he can actually move up to an A tier under certain situations, because he can essentially combine with mute and use their own intelligence, their own drones, against them, which is great. But my biggest gripe with Mozzie is that the whole team cannot use his drones. Only he can use his captured drones, which sucks, really. I think UB really needs to change that, to have the whole team be able to use the drones. Maestro is an S tier operator. He's basically Echo with a special change. His cameras do not move, they are bulletproof, and they fire lasers, which is pretty great. Echo is banned almost all the time, so Maestro is actually great whenever Echo is banned, or vice versa. Whenever Maestro is banned, you can pick Echo. Twitch, C tier for sure. Her gun is actually terrible now. The F2 is not worth using. I think I could actually deal more damage at a more consistent pace with my fists. And her drone it's just too risky to use her drone to take out utility. And if it's too risky to take out utility, then why would I pick Twitch when I could pick another operator with a drone that can actually jump? I don't know, just something to think about. She's not quite useless, like these things down here. But she's sitting in C, with bad company. Dokkaebi is B, even though her guns are terrible, and you basically just have to use a secondary for a fully automatic option. She is so irritating, and one of the best operators for roam pushing and getting roamers out in the entire game. And it's this annoyance factor as to why she's placed in B. We got 4 operators left, and I know that this video is like 10 years long, so these are going to go in rapid fire. Lion is an A tier operator, great guns. He has claymores, he can stop pushes and defensive leads if played correctly. Legion, A tier operator, he's one of the best trappers in the entire game. His SMG is actually cracked. Not as good as when he was an S tier operator, but he's still great. Oryx, C tier operator, he doesn't have a place in the game. His guns are subpar, and he's only really useful for runouts. And Ella, B. Her Grismot mines and her deployable shield is really good for locking down sight. Also her barbed wire. And there's a really cool trick you can do when you break the floor and you throw her mine in to the floor to disguise it. All of these things make her really good for locking down the sight and alerting the defensive anchors as to where they're coming from. However, that really doesn't correlate with her 3 armor, 3 speed, 1 armor archetype that she's in, so I really don't feel like she's all that effective. And that is all the operators in Rainbow Six Siege, ranked from S to D tier. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like and subscribe to the channel. If you didn't, that's fine, but still leave a subscribe. Alright, I will catch you guys in the next video. If you see anything wrong with the list, be sure to leave it down in the comments below. See ya.